Spellweaver, your silence has grown concerning. What has you so pensive?
I did mention that these druids are far less welcoming than those who we are used to, yes?
Yes, but what specifically is causing you to feel so much apprehension?
Not knowing which of the many druids that guard this forest we may encounter.
The two men gingerly continue their trek through the verdant forest of the Aubriss druid domain. The forest remained quiet and still, despite the various animals and fey creatures that occupy its terrain.
You came back!
Lucio orients himself. He looked down at the young man who had nearly tackled him to the ground in excitement.
Yes, young prince. I can see that you missed me.
Of course I did! What brought you back? Are you intending to stay to give me more lessons about magic?
We shall see. I would need to make arrangements with your parents.
I'm sorry, but this excitable young man is royalty.
The young prince looks at the dragon for the first time.
Yes, and he is quite the student.
These two druid domains are incredibly different.
We can retire to the manor now. Dad will be preparing food soon, and of course you can stay with us.
Yes. No need to be overly excited, young prince. We will be here a while.
Aettus sits at the dining table. He had been on the Aubriss domain for several days, and he had observed a list of similarities and differences between the Narrator domain as well as his home of the Rainy Peaks Mountains. He was up early and contemplating these thoughts. He was not one for changing his routine, but he also did not want to disturb the others who were still asleep.
You are up quite early.
Yes, as I always am, King Tananrei.
Don't let me interrupt your thoughts. And you do not have to refer to me as my title. Only the knights do that. And I believe it's out of habit.
I am not one for titles myself. My fellow villagers deem me their lord, and that has never sat well with me.
I'd rather be known for my deeds than my blood ties, but one can hardly force others to separate the two.
That seems to remain true, certainly, no matter the number of times I've tried to change their minds.
Changing minds is never easy. My daughter knows that, and she has struggled with wanting to open others up to her viewpoints. Even as a child, to follow in succession to me, she has come to accept the harsh reality, knowing the friction her beliefs create.
I am afraid I do not understand.
Well, you see, my daughter has an all-loving and all-accepting personality.
That trait is normally seen as a positive one to have.
In many places, certainly. But where tradition is a virtue, change is seen as its counterpoint.
Your domain hardly seems to be that sort of place.
A walk with one family is hardly representative of every person's thoughts, feelings, and experiences. Even a noble ruling class family can fail to represent its people.
I suppose that may hold true.
My children have inherited so much from me, even my problems. And that includes those problems that I never solved. Xenophobia, fear of the future that lies ahead of us. All of that falls onto a leader, and now Brielle must deal with all of my problems and problems that will plague her for her own faults and choices.
I know it is hardly my place to address it, but why not attempt to solve those problems before your daughter ascends to the throne?
The problems are hardly going to be solved in that short of a span of time. But I do feel as though I did not do enough to lessen the weight of my daughter's crown.
It would be my guess that all parents feel that way from time to time.
Yes, well, my daughter may be making certain choices in the coming days that are not doing her any favors as well.
I am afraid I don't follow.
I suspect that her own court may prey upon the xenophobia of the Aubriss Wood Elves, including your companion acting as her and her brother's tutor.
What would Lucio have done to offend, well, anybody?
Not being a full-blooded wood elf, and not being from this domain.
That hardly makes him a threat to anybody.
That is not the mindset of the people here. The tale of what happened to the Oberoni domain is a fear that drives the druids here.
The tale that swamp elves dragged the sacred forest into its current state of decay?
Yes, the story as we know it is that the Oberoni wood elves let other elves live in their prosperous land, and that the swamp elves destroy nature the way that our druids preserve and protect nature.
Your people base their entire beliefs about an entire people on a children's story?
Whether it's simply a story, or if there is some truth to it, unless you are a dragon far older than you appear to be, neither of us can say with certainty.
I suppose so.
Regardless, that mentality is rooted in the minds of our people.
I dare say that Lucio alone will probably not cause your daughter any trouble when she becomes queen. One visiting tutor is hardly cause for alarm.
Oh, Lucio is not the individual to whom I was referring.
Then who?
That would be Ciar. He is a wanderer whom my children found a few months ago. He has been with us ever since.
You took in a wanderer? That would not alarm anybody I personally know.
We took him in for the winter, or until he wanted to leave again. I somehow doubt he's going to want to leave.
Well, if he is happy here, he may not want to leave. I can only imagine the cloud that comes from him being a tutor of the royal family, and living here with them. If he was a wanderer beforehand, this has to be a better living situation.
It may simply be for those reasons. I somehow doubt that, though.
Am I missing something?
My daughter You intend to walk the domain, yes?
I do, yes.
Ciar, dressed in the clothes he slept in, joins the other two men in the room. Ciar, dressed in the clothes he slept in, joins the other two men in the room.
Doing that will give you better understanding. Good morning, Ciar.
Good morning.
Why don't you prepare some tea? I need to gather some fresh fruit, herbs, and spices, and I will prepare everyone a large feast.
Of course, sir.
That man is far too happy for the wee hour of the morning.
If you think that, then wait until Faolan wakes.
Since there are more of us, I thought taking a longer route would be beneficial for all of us.
Koa eyes the newcomer, Aettus, with mild suspicion before smiling.
As you say, did you have a route in mind for this?
Just around the outskirts of the domain. It will be a nice walk for all of us.
Whatever you wish, Bree. We are here to protect you as always. And, from the looks of it, protect your alchemist as well?
If you would be so kind.
Like our princess would give us a choice.
Of course not. Everybody needs to be safe.
That, and you do love to dote on him.
Of course I do. I dote on each of you.
Regardless, this is not getting our rounds done any faster.
We should get going. We have a longer walk than we normally would.
Brielle begins walking their intended path. Her knights quickly follow.
He keeps teasing like that.
As he shakes his head, the alchemist begins to follow behind the rest of the group.
And this is a normal day for them?
Roughly, yes. Why?
It seems odd to me.
Are you coming along? To see the domain?
Of course. I did intend to experience life where the gods had walked, after all.
The small group walked through the verdant forest. The fields they were traveling were lined with a myriad of wildflowers, tall grasses, and animals peacefully grazing.
Oh, everything smells so pretty.
Princess, please don't stray too far.
You know she isn't going to listen, Velda.
Oh, You two are far too protective of me. I'm fine.
Too protective of a princess? Is there any such thing?
Of course not. Especially not when she's the crown princess.
I am fine. I assure you.
So you say. But we know you can be... How do I want to put this?
You have a lot of wonderful qualities, but you can be whimsical, princess.
What do you mean by calling her whimsical? That doesn't sound so terrible to me.
It's also not your job to keep her safe during her flights of fancy.
Exactly. And if it were, I feel certain you would be at least as protective of her as we are.
Right.
That said, Princess, do please try not to stray too far.
I never do.
Koa rolls his eyes.
If that were the case, we wouldn't be asking you not to.
Come on, Ciar. I am certain we can find things usable in alchemy.
Right. Coming.
Maybe we should make him one of her knights. That way we wouldn't lose her so easily.
I hate how much sense that idea really makes.
If we suggest the idea, you think she would like it? Agree that it was a good idea?
Yeah, she probably would.
Let's go, before they get too far ahead of us.
Right. Avani only knows what trouble they'll get into otherwise.
The two knights start after the princess and the alchemist.
They completely forgot we were here, didn't they?
I believe so, yes.
Huh.
Yes, it is always like this here.
Interesting.
The group traveled the outskirts of the Aubriss domain. The two knights kept pace with the princess and alchemist. The guests of the domain trailed behind the other four, but kept their pace. The group came to a stop when the princess knelt beside a small section of vegetation.
What is the matter? Why have we stopped?
I have yet to figure out why this happens.
Is it the overgrowth again?
It is. Yes. Look how much the nearby plant life has been suffering.
The druid princess indicates the wilting plants near the overgrowth, prompting her knights to frown deeply.
I see.
So, this has been happening frequently? How do you handle it?
You ask for Avani to intervene, so that all things may flourish.
Have you done this before?
On occasion, yes. Have you? You are a druid, yes?
I have. I live on a mountainside that sees a lot of rain, and thus a lot of overgrowth.
Would you care to help?
But, of course. It would be an honor, Princess.
Why does everybody call me that?
Because you are the princess.
Yes, but I have a name.
I know that, Brielle, but it's not wrong to use your title.
I suppose not.
If you wouldn't mind carrying on with your prayers, Bree.
Oh, right.
Aettus and Brielle approach the overgrowth.
Unforgiving and ever-changing is your essence.
Unforgiving and ever-changing is your essence.
After the druid's prayer began shaping the forest's flora, they step away from the overgrowth.
That was amazing.
It is quite a sight.
Her father is far worse, let alone her brother.
Indeed. And we are grateful they can.
Otherwise, who knows what would happen to our home.
Thank you. I am glad you appreciate what we do.
Before we get too carried away, perhaps we should move on. There's no telling if any other patches of overgrowth have formed today.
You're right.
Brielle happily begins leading the group. After a brief moment, Ciar follows behind her.
Come on, you know we have to keep pace with her.
I know. She's too excitable for her own good.
She could be worse. You know, like her father.
Koa visibly shudders and shakes his head.
I think I'll stick with Bree, thank you.
After the brief exchange, the group continues onward.
Oh, look! These started to bloom. They're so pretty and fragrant.
The druid princess takes off toward the newly blooming flowers.
Perhaps they could be of use in my alchemy then.
The Khazad-dûm alchemist runs off behind Brielle. With an exasperated glance at one another, Koa and Velda follow the two.
She is energetic.
Her father is far worse, let alone her brother.
Knights here certainly have their hands full.
Indeed they do. Shall we follow them so that we do not fall too far behind?
Oh, right, of course.
Early in the morning in his room, Aettus is awake. He reflects on everything he'd experienced since he had set out on his pilgrimage. He had met many people from different backgrounds, and he had been fortunate enough to experience life among others who he had not have known about firsthand before he left his home. Various exchanges passed through his thoughts.
All right, we can begin collecting apples for your baking.
Yes! These will make wonderful pies. There should be many ripe apples by now.
Oh, yes! I cannot wait! We even have fresh cinnamon!
And we have plenty of time to begin baking tonight.
You absolutely must stay on the usual path to the orchard.
But remember that bears have been coming closer to homes now, my king, my prince.
Because if you do not agree to this, then we will absolutely not take you out to the orchard again. That means you can attempt to persuade the other royal knights to take you.
We know how excitable the two of you are.
And we mean this with the utmost respect in the world.
Excuse me, knights?
Yes?
The prince and king are gone.
The two royal knights turn around. Faolan and Tananrei are rushing down the dirt path toward the nearby apple orchard.
They what?
Oh, delicious pies!
We'll stay up all night if we have to finish them.
Fine. Let's go, Chiron.
We should know better. And yet...
Is it really such a big deal that the young man has swamp elf heritage?
Unfortunately, yes. Even with him being a wonderful tutor and friend, many of the wood elves on the Aubriss domain are against me having Ciar on the domain at all, let alone as a member of the royal court.
But he is teaching you something invaluable, no? Something that many on this domain do not have the know-how to teach.
Correct. Alchemy is not commonly practiced here. But it is fascinating, and my brother and I both want to learn as much as we can about it. Isn't there something that your home has that you don't like?
Only the beliefs of the people who live at the foot of the mountains.
Really? What beliefs are those?
That my siblings and I are monsters they must appease with mortal sacrifices to be our food or wives.
You cannot be serious.
That my siblings and I are monsters they must appease with mortal sacrifices to be our food or wives.
You're not that big, really. Well, I've never seen you as a dragon.
You actually think that?
Koa has been this big since he and I were teenagers. I guess I'm used to tall men and don't think they're scary.
You're not afraid of dragons, nor of being dethroned by your people. But you are afraid of some interpersonal interactions.
Some people are intimidating.
Myself, a giant dragon and your terse. Burly knights don't intimidate you. But your alchemist does.
Yes?
So, why stay here?
Where else am I to go?
I have been on the Narrator domain. They are far more welcoming of outsiders than the wood elves here.
Oh, I see.
If you are concerned about getting there, I would not mind taking you, and I feel certain Lucio would enjoy the trek as well.
I see.
Is something wrong?
It is not something I had ever really thought of, I suppose, but, then again.
Is something wrong?
But, Brielle, what is the princess to do if I...
Tananrei knocks on the door to Aettus's room.
Yes?
I am about to prepare breakfast, and I anticipated you would be awake.
Ah, yes. Thank you. I will join you in a moment.
Lucio looks down at the beads the king of the Aubriss domain had given him. He had taken to decorating his hair with beads when he was younger, but they were not the same as the ones bestowed on commoners by the nobility.
I had never asked about the beads you wear in your hair.
What of them?
I'd thought they were unique to wood elves.
Oh, I remember that my parents had them in their hair, and each of us wear them, my siblings and myself.
You have no idea where this tradition had originated, then?
No, I suppose not.
What an interesting question to posit, then.
Yes, certainly. If anyone would hold the answers, that would be my parents. But speaking to them again is still a long time off.
That is true. You do still have several areas where the gods walked to experience for yourself.
Yes, and I am curious just what it is that I will learn about these wood elves and druids. So little is known of them.
I venture the guess that this is because nobody wants to venture out into the cold to experience life alongside the druids of the chilly Northlands.
I have only experienced the cold as relates to my home on the mountainside. I have learned from books that the cold in the far north on the snowy plains may be different.
It is, but it should not be too cold at this time of year.
That is good, since I am not prepared for winters that cold, personally. Not with my current attire.
There are vendors closer to the Terra domain, many traveling caravans even. There should be furs, pelts, and heavier cloaks should you feel we need them.
That is a relief.
What did you discover after spending time with the Aubriss royal family?
Many things. Among them is the type of wisdom I wish to impart upon my children. That as hard as I try, I can never lay down the perfect foundation for their futures. That each generation will inevitably have its own problems. I believe my time there taught me a lot. And I dare say that they changed my idea of what royalty behaves like.
You're referring to how excitable Faolan and Tananrei are.
Yes. It was difficult to believe they are adult men at times.
And you see now why I am not intimidated by a visit to their manor.
Given the royal family's personalities, I am more afraid of their knights, honestly.
That is probably a smart perception and viewpoint.
But it was kind of them to allow us back whenever we wanted.
They are very warm and generous, yes.
And this family of royal druids on the Terra domain, you do not know them?
Not personally. I know of them from their reputation, though. I know more of their domain and their exports.
Exports?
Many types of fish, not found anywhere but the frigid waters of the north.
I assume these taste well.
I intend to partake of the cuisine of the north while we visit. Why not indulge in the finer things in life?
A cultural explanation of an area's food.
Why not? Food is different all over the world. Certainly the food you've tried along the way has been different than what you're used to.
Yes, which is why I've eaten only what I'm familiar with.
I insist that you partake of these wonderful foods. Consider it a bonus on your spiritual journey.
I suppose I can.